Welcome to the CT Educator podcast. I am your host, Karina Hogan. I am a registered CT technologist with 20 years of experience and knowledge. I help new CT technologists level up their CT training so that you can become a successful technologist. I'm also a mom and committed to sharing my knowledge and expertise to help you build your confidence, know the CT basics so that you can deliver quality patient care. So let's get into it. Hello. Welcome back. Technologists. Welcome back to the podcast. Super excited to do this episode today. So we are in the swing of things when it comes to Christmas and freaking the holidays. So now looks like Mariah Carey has already come out and it's freaking cold outside. So yeah, we're getting into the swing of things when it comes to Christmas and the holidays and just this next push for the next 2 months. And then 2025 will be here. So hopefully you got those goals, ready to go. Make sure you guys are becoming successful CT techs out there, okay? So little housekeeping before we start today's episode. As always, I am still taking 10 spots into my new coaching and mentorship program, the CT Educator. So it is 6 months where I coach you and mentor you to be the most successful CT tech out there, where you can walk into any hospital and be ready to scan on day one. It will get you registry ready so you are confident when you take that test. Plus, you get a self-paced portal where you get all the trainings that I have done, and including new trainings, live trainings every single week for 6 months. And you get a bunch of helpful guides, PDF downloads, and the CT ebook that I have created, the CT Blueprint. So make sure you check out that link in the show notes. There is an application form to fill out. So if you're interested in joining the programs, I know you are out there. Make sure you guys fill out the application. Once you get accepted, you will get immediate access to that portal. And you will also get Slack coaching daily, 5 days a week, to make sure that you bring your questions. If you have any concerns, anything you need help on, exams, I am there to coach you all in every step of the way. Okay. So make sure you guys check that out. I also have a lower tier program where it's 90 days. You will get one live course for 3 months. So one live course each month. So one live class. Okay. And you will have also a on-demand, self-paced portal where you can come in, and also you will get Slack coaching. You will get downloads. Make sure you check that out. That one is the CT Blueprint. So make sure you check out those programs. If you need just a basic one-on-one to get you started, since you're new to your training, I have a one-on-one course. It's $350 that you can come in and get up to speed on all the 101 tips and tricks of CT. Make sure you check out the show notes for all that great information and get in on the program. So in today's episode, I know I haven't done a story on my series, CT Trauma Stories. I have a very good one for you that I took out of the vault of all the different trauma stories that I have done over the years. This one is actually a trauma story that I did. I believe it was pre-COVID. So super excited to share it with you. So the title of this trauma story is The Knife in the Temple. So this is going to be interesting. So buckle up, you guys. Okay. So this is a case that I did before COVID. And it was before COVID hit. I was working overnights because of my kids' schedule. And at the time, I was going through a very difficult, painful divorce. So I had to have a shift that was going to work, with the needs of my children, because I do have special needs children, and that it wasn't going to interfere with the exchange when it came to parenting. So I was working overnights. And it was a weekend. It was my weekend to work. At that time, we used to work, I believe it was every third weekend. We used to work every other weekend, and then we switched to every third like we do now. So this case comes in. The clinical history that I received on the patient is the patient got into an argument. The patient was a male, got into an argument with his partner. She had discovered and found out that he was seeing another woman behind her back. And in a fit full of rage, she stabbed him in the temple. So naturally, I'm thinking, okay. And so when the nurse calls and says, hey, we've got the trauma ready, I was all ready to go. And they told me it was a stab wound. So I'm thinking, okay, whatever. And I said, so no rectal. And they're like, no rectal contrast. Because usually if you get stabbed, in the abdomen, they want to see if you have any internal bleeding. So we give them rectal contrast. Well, she says, no, we're not going to need rectal contrast. And I said, well, why is that? And she proceeds to tell me that the patient was brought in by Chicago Fire and was talking. He was responsive. He was answering questions, just alert and oriented. However, he had a knife inside his temple. And I said, you have to be shitting me. I couldn't believe this story. Well, they said, listen, we're going to intubate him because we need to protect his airway because we don't know if he has severed any arteries because he got stabbed by his partner. So the patient arrives to CT. There is like a team of people with him, right? He's intubated because they want to protect his airway and they don't want him talking so this knife doesn't move. And I am not kidding you guys. This knife was on the right side of his temple, like buried inside. Like it was one of those switchblade knives just in his temple, like sitting in there. And I remember taking one look at the nurse. I took a look at the trauma attending and I said, you guys weren't joking. And I go, how does this happen? How is this possible? So luckily, the 256 scanner that we have has a larger opening than most of the regular ones. So I know that typical CT machines have like a 70 centimeter opening. This one has 80. So we can accommodate bigger patients or if patients are contracted, or in this instance, this patient has a knife in his temple and the other side is sticking out of his head. So I go ahead and scan him. They just wanted a CT head without contrast because they were immediately taking the patient up to the OR. So there was no bleeding around, but you can see this knife just in there and it was sitting near some vessels. I hadn't even given him contrast, but the trauma attending, he's like, this is really dangerous. So they were trying to figure out a plan and a strategy on how they were going to remove this. So patient gets taken up to the OR. They were up there for a while. They called me and they said, hey, we need to bring that patient back down. He still has the knife inside his head, okay, in his temple, because they couldn't figure out how to safely remove it. So he comes back down. Patient comes back down. And they were trying to have a strategy because they said if they currently remove it now, the patient can bleed out and the patient can expire, right? So neurosurgery gets contacted. The attending that was covering that night comes in. He says, Karina, I need you to do a CTA head and neck on this patient because I need to know what arteries are sitting around, this knife. And I said, okay. So we go ahead and we do this. I inject him with contrast, beautiful study. And he says, okay, I think I have a plan on how I'm going to do this. So they leave the department and they go back to surgery. I don't hear anything about this case anymore. It was just the weirdest thing. And I said, this is why you should be honest in a relationship, because if you want to see other people, you guys should just break up, okay? Because this is the shit that we encounter when you work in a trauma hospital. So fast forward 24 hours later, I was back on the shift because it was my weekend to work. So this had happened, I believe, on a Saturday. This is a Sunday. So patient comes back because when it comes to neuro, we have to scan them every 24 hours. So they said, hey, we're coming down. 24 hours later, the same patient comes down. He's not intubated anymore. And all of a sudden, knife is removed. And so I happened to rescan him. Luckily for this patient, there was no bleeding, no injuries, no any after effects after this happened. And the neurosurgeon that was on staff, he is very well known. He's very good and not very nice, but you want somebody who's good that's going to make sure that they do their job properly. So he was very careful when it came to this and was able to remove this knife out of this patient's head. And I believe that the patient was there probably another week and then he was discharged. And he came in actually, I think it was as an outpatient to follow up, and he's doing pretty good after that. So this is one of the scariest cases I've ever seen because one movement, one anything, and this poor patient could have severed an artery and could have died. And we were surprised that when this knife just, punctured the patient, it didn't kill him instantly. So I'm not sure if it was an angle, the way it was angled, the way it was, but this patient survived this type of injury. So my advice to some of you gentlemen out there that are listening to my podcast, if you are going to mess around, make sure that you are single, because I can't tell you how many stories I have like this with different incidences in my vault of CT trauma stories that I probably will share in the coming months, that when partners execute revenge on people who do them dirty. So this was like one of the scariest cases. It could have gone very south very quickly. I am just super grateful and happy that this patient actually made it out of the hospital, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want our patients to get better and to, go on with life as normal outside of the hospital. So that is my CT trauma story for today. I hope this story was interesting to you, because you know what? Now that I think about it, it's just interesting to retell the story, because I have so many stories when it comes to different trauma cases that I have done over the years. Okay. So make sure you guys check out the CT Educator program. 10 spots are available. So get in on the program, guys. Also, make sure you follow along on Instagram at the CT Educator, where I still post lots of educational content and I give you all the CT things there. So hopefully this episode was super helpful. Thank you so much for listening, and I will chat with you guys next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you would like to share your CT experience, have an interesting story to share, or need help in your CT training, please email me your questions at contact@thecteducator.com. Follow along on Instagram at the CT Educator, also on Facebook at the CT Educator. Don't forget to like, share, leave a 5-star review, as this will help support the show and it'll reach all of you that need guidance. Thank you for listening, and happy scanning.